Hello everyone. Today we start a new chapter on Amazon Cloud. You know that Amazon Cloud or AWS, Amazon Web Services, is one of the pioneers in cloud industry. So the company is the first one who talked about cloud computing in 2007. And so far they have been very dynamic and offering new services every month, and no other company so far can compete with them. So in this chapter, our plan is to talk about few important services of Amazon Cloud. We know that Amazon Cloud offers numerous services. I don't know the exact number, but maybe more than 100 services. The way I explain Amazon Cloud and what they have achieved is that they decomposed a distributed system into small pieces and sell them in form of service. So for example, the compute part, they detach it from the rest of the system and sell it to us, and we can use it in whatever way we want. This storage, they detach it from the distributed system and then they sell it to us separately or along with their other services. Another thing is load balancer or scheduler. They do the same thing. Databases, they do the same thing. Even security services, they do the same thing. They sell it as a service. So this is what Amazon has done, and many cloud providers, but as I said, Amazon is the pioneer in this regard. Alright, in this chapter, as I mentioned earlier, I introduced some of the most popular Amazon Cloud services, and we will do one assignment based on the material of this chapter. Alright, the most popular service of Amazon Cloud is known as Amazon EC2 or Amazon Compute Cloud, which is called Elastic Compute Cloud, which is called EC2. So from the name you can see that the elasticity is one of the features, one of the main features of this service. So basically EC2, Amazon EC2 is nothing but offering virtual machines to users to deploy it in the way they want. So using a virtual machine, they give you a root access, and remotely you can connect to your virtual machine and use it as if it is your computer. However, the machine is not maintained by you, the machine is maintained by them. You just need a normal computer, sometimes known as a thin client, to connect to that machine, to that remote virtual machine, and utilize it in isolation from other users. So EC2 is one of the very popular services of cloud, of any cloud, I would say, but or virtual machine is one of the popular services of many clouds, but specifically EC2 is the popular one within the AWS Cloud. And there are many other services built around this centric service. So the way you utilize AWS EC2 or Amazon EC2 is that you have your application, and within your application, of course, your application is deployed within Amazon EC2, which is virtual machines, and around that there are many other services as you can see here. For example, Elastic IP address. I told you earlier that Amazon, what they have done is like basically selling different parts of a distributed system as a service. So here you can see that they sell you an Elastic IP address. So Elastic Block Storage, they sell us storage for our VM, for our virtual machine. So for example, Amazon CloudWatch is another service that enables you to monitor the performance of your virtual machine. Elastic Load Balancing, Auto Scaling, and many other services are around this central component of Amazon Cloud. So as I mentioned, EC2 instances or EC2 service comes in form of virtual machine instances. So in Amazon terminology, it's called an instance. A virtual machine is called an instance. Basically, instance means the virtual machine that is created and it is active in memory, as opposed to the virtual machine image that is passive and is on the storage. So when you want, basically you create a virtual machine, which means Amazon EC2 service. When you create a virtual machine, you create it from an existing image. I will talk about it in a later slide. That image, you can configure it to be instantiated in a certain configuration. For example, with a certain number of CPU cores and with a certain amount of main memory and other configurations such as static IP, such as load balancer, and many other things. All right, so you can even determine where this virtual machine to be instantiated. Amazon is a global company and they have different regions. So even within the US, they have several regions in north, east, west, and south. And you can instantiate in any of those places based on your location or your preference. Within this is known as regions in Amazon terminology. Within each region, they have multiple availability zones, which are isolated data centers, different physical locations that you can instantiate your resources in those locations. All right. So a little bit about the life cycle of a VM. So once you instantiate a VM from a VM image from what is so-called AMI, Amazon Machine Image, which is nothing but virtual machine image. So once you instantiate from that, first your VM is in the pending state. It takes a while. A while means like around a minute, sometimes less, sometimes more, to boot up. Once that is boot up, your instance is launched and it is in the running state. The instance which is in the running state, you have to pay for it, and it is paid in an hourly manner, and then you are charged for it, and you can utilize that up until it is in the running state. Once you terminate that, so you can define the action of termination on the existing VM, and then it is shutting down, and then it will be terminated, and you are not be charged for that virtual machine. Okay, so the underlying architecture of the EC2 instances are different. In Amazon terminology, these are called instance types. In other words, you can create a heterogeneous distributed system using Amazon EC2 service. So in particular, they offer general purpose VMs, which are for normal use cases such as hosting a website or doing testing and things like that. Even within general purpose, there are several subtypes of VMs depending on the number of cores and or the type of workload they are matching for. For example, there are within general purpose, there are instance types that are just for testing. Those are called microservices or tiny services, tiny VMs. There are other types for, let's say, machine learning, or that fit better to machine learning applications. And let's say there are ARM-based architectures and many different, several different architectures, even within general purpose. The compute optimized resources or instances are the ones that have strong CPU power. They have more number of cores and a higher clock speed, and of course they are more expensive. You can imagine that memory optimized and storage optimized are stronger in certain aspects. For example, the memory optimized have huge memory size. These are a good fit for applications such as big data analytics, where we need to load a huge amount of data into the memory. Another aspect or another instance type that recently has got more popularity is the accelerated instance types. So within Amazon Cloud, you can even create GPU instances, FPGA instances, or what is recently released, and it's known INF1, that is kind of ASIC, specific purpose resources or VMs that are designed for specific applications such as machine learning. All right, so here you can see different types of virtual machines. So these are all general purpose instances, and then for example, these are more CPU intensive or CPU optimized, they call it. Even you can create a cluster, a distributed system, a cluster of VMs basically, or you can create accelerators. All right. So another important thing regarding Amazon instances is the way you can purchase the resources. So they have more than one type of resource instantiation, or the way you can purchase VMs, or you can pay to the company. You can choose to do it in an on-demand manner, which means that whenever you require a VM, you just go ahead and instantiate, and you are charged from the moment that you are instantiating. However, if you know your demand in advance, you can reserve some instances. You pay Amazon in advance for a long term, and then they give you discounted resources during that contract. Let's say you have a company and you know that within the next year you are going to use at least 2 virtual machines per day. So it's better for you to get a reserved resource and pay less to the cloud company. Another interesting type of purchasing is called spot instances. In spot instances, basically you can bid for the resource or for the VM type that you require, and because it is based on auction and bidding, you can get resources in a much cheaper cost than the on-demand type. For example, you can get 60 to even 70% cheaper than the original price. The interesting thing about spot instances is that Amazon scavenges the resources that are unused within their data centers, and then they sell them in the spot instance form. And that's the reason that they are cheaper. However, the disadvantage of spot instances is that they are not stable. In other words, because it follows the auction based on the demand, the price may change, and you can easily go out of bid, and your resources will be terminated. Your VMs will be terminated in that case. This means that if you have a very sensitive application, an application that is very sensitive to availability, let's say you host a web application and your clients keep purchasing items from or keep visiting your web application, then it is not a good option to go for spot instances. But if you are going to do some, testing or some simulations, and the cost is more important for you, and you can tolerate some failure, spot instances will help you a lot. There are even solutions that you can combine these purchasing options and minimize your expenditure on cloud services. So another dependent service to Amazon EC2 is called AMI, Amazon Machine Images. These are the VM images. These are the bulky files that include the operating system and the packages you want within one huge file. So in Amazon, there are some pre-existing AMIs, public AMIs that you can instantiate from, or you can build your own private AMI, and then you can instantiate from your own AMI. Generally, there are numerous public AMIs that you can instantiate from, and they have all the packages installed. For example, you need an image, AMI it's called. You need an AMI that includes, let's say, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So there are already AMIs that have that package. So you can just instantiate from them. All right. And then from one AMI, of course, you can create multiple instances based on your demand. I talked about regions and availability zones. These are the physical configurations of Amazon services. Another service related to Amazon EC2 is called EBS, Elastic Block Storage. So the virtual machines that we create in Amazon or in other cloud providers are volatile. In other words, if you instantiate a virtual machine, although it gives you isolation, although it gives you root access, and you can install whatever you want within that virtual machine, but that is volatile, which means that as soon as you terminate the virtual machine, all the changes are gone. So the solution to this problem is to use an EBS volume, which basically attaches a hard disk to your virtual machine, and then whatever change you make within your VM are persisted in this EBS, exactly like your laptop or your PC, where all the changes, for example, the applications you install or the data you store, are persisted on the hard disk. So EBS plays that role, and you should be careful if you want to persist, which is generally the case, persist the changes in the VM. You have to create EBS instance type. Okay, another side service for Amazon Cloud is known as CloudWatch, that works along with EC2 and enables you to monitor the utilization of the CPU, disk, network, and a wide variety of options to see how they are performing, and then you can plan how you should reconfigure your system or how to do this elasticity. Another interesting service that again works with EC2 is known as ELB, or Elastic Load Balancer. Again, this is a service that can manage your virtual machines. It's like a scheduler, so it takes care of the elasticity of your resources. Basically, what it does is that when there is a high traffic on your existing resources, it stretches the allocated resources, and it automatically allocate more virtual machines. And then when there is a low traffic, it squeezes the resources to a minimum, such that the user receives a good quality of service and the cost is minimized. So you can attach an elastic load balancer to your virtual machines. Okay, so it enables fault tolerance, it can detect the health of your resources, and so it has the ability to stick user sessions to specific EC2 instances. All right, so this Amazon EC2 is in fact the infrastructure as a service type cloud. So in other words, I can say that Amazon provides different types of services, or services in different levels. Specifically in the infrastructure as a service level and in a platform as a service level. What we explained in Amazon EC2 is infrastructure as a service level. Here, I'm going to introduce another service that provides us platform level service, and that's called Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk or provides us the web application service. In other words, many users of Amazon, they require VMs and resources to host a website. So Amazon Elastic Beanstalk relieves those users from dealing with virtual machines, with Elastic Load Balancer, EBS, and whatnot. In fact, this is Elastic Beanstalk is a layer in front of those details that basically eases the job of the user that needs a web application can just use Elastic Beanstalk, and Elastic Beanstalk behind the scene manages all those details. Specifically, this is interesting for hosting web applications, in particular multi-tier web applications. If you wanted to have 2 or 3 tier web applications, this is a perfect solution. Okay, so in another video, I will show you how to do these steps. But here, in summary, we say that you have to first create an environment, then you upload your application, let's say PHP files, and then you have to do some configuration just for the first time. Once your application is up and running, then the users can just use it, and you do not need to do any of these configurations again. All right, so let's skip these steps. These are good for your assignment to perform to configure the Amazon Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, this is how to configure the database, and then some details on how to do that. Another Amazon service or AWS service is known as S3, Simple Storage Service. So this service provides us storage. Often you need to store a lot of data on your external disk or on your internal hard disk, external hard disk, or on some third-party storage providers such as Dropbox or Google Drive. So those services, for example, Dropbox, behind the scene itself uses another storage service provider, which is Amazon S3. So all of your data are stored in Amazon S3. Well, this is one of the use cases for Amazon S3. There are other use cases. For example, you may have a video streaming service. So you should host a lot of videos and for your users, something like YouTube, you can imagine. So where are those videos stored? So S3 is the service. Then you can pair S3 with your virtual machine, and you can pull the videos or your files from Amazon S3 to your VM, and then you do the processing in there. All right. And then the good thing with Amazon services is that they are all web service based. So you can you can programmatically connect. In addition to web interface and command line interface, you can incorporate Amazon services within your application. For example, within the Dropbox application, it is communicating using APIs, using web services to Amazon S3 to do the storage. All right, so Amazon services come with an SLA, service level agreement. So with service level agreement, they guarantee some level of quality to their users. For example, in case of S3, they say they guarantee that they provide 99.9% uptime for their service, for their storage service, and up to 25% of the monthly payment is credited back to you in case that SLA is not respected. So within S3, we have a concept like buckets. So you know that we in normal hard disks, we have files and we have folders or directories. In S3, in addition to these two, we have something called bucket. A bucket is like a folder, but it has some more restrictions. For example, each user can only have 100 buckets, and they cannot be nested. They cannot be formed in a hierarchical manner. And for deleting a bucket, that bucket has to be empty. So in other words, we can imagine a bucket as a container for other folders and files that you want to store. Okay. So this is steps on how to create a bucket. I'm going to skip these steps. You can read them later and apply them on Amazon services. So all your data on Amazon on Amazon S3 are backed up well, and they are kept in a redundant manner, such that they guarantee the availability and your data will not be lost. So they support server-side encryption. You can ask them to encrypt your data while the data is stored on their machines. However, you should know that the key to the encrypted data is again maintained by the cloud. So it protects you from external attackers, but not from the internal attackers. So with S3 and with storage, one of the main issues is the latency. So you have to be careful about the latency of accessing your files, because for some applications it's very time sensitive. Let's say if you host a web application and so you have so many images in that application, and if the images load with latency, your clients will not be happy. Okay, so the moving buckets between regions should be manually by the user, and you can use the log system to track all the activities occur on a specific bucket. So there are some services offered on S3 to protect them, to secure them. So basically for each object, which means a file in your S3, you can define four level of protection. For the owner, that is who owned who created the object. The authenticated users, that are the users that have AWS account. You can make it public so that anyone can have access to that document or file, or you can make it available to specific people by their email address. Okay, these are the steps on how to secure your S3, and this part talks about the web service part, that you can access the Amazon Web Services using RESTful APIs. So this is the steps how to do that. For example, here you create a new Amazon S3 object, and then for that object you programmatically create bucket, and then within that bucket you can do some whatever output to print whatever you want to do programmatically, and things with this nature. So you can define high volume deletion on your S3 to delete huge amount of files at the same time. So it's very flexible, and you can script it to be done in a methodical way. Another interesting service in cloud, in AWS Cloud, is known as CloudFront. So we mentioned in the previous part that Amazon S3 has a latency problem. and your files might be retrieved with some latency that can be harmful for some applications. So to remove that latency, Amazon provides us with some CDN services. So CDN, Content Delivery Networks, maybe you have heard of. A CDN service is a service that basically reduces the latency to the users by storing objects close to the users. Like that, for example, if you want to watch a video that that is hosted originally, let's say in California, there might be some CDNs around us that already cache that video, and then instead of getting it from the original source, you get it from that CDN. The CDN provided by Amazon is known as CloudFront. Okay, they have several edge devices or the edge servers, that is like the CDN servers, including several ones in the US that can host or can cache the data and significantly improve the access time to the objects. So this is the coverage of CloudFront. Of course, the picture is not very updated, but they have a good coverage all around the world nowadays. So the way CDNs and CloudFront works is as follows: that the user requests some content. So the request goes to the one of those CDNs. Let's assume that this is the network of those CDNs, and then or edge servers it's called. And then if the content is cached, it is served to the user. If not, it is requested from S3, which is the storage service. And then the data is cached in that particular CDN and maybe in other CDNs. And then the data is transferred to the user. So this is the workflow of actions for CloudFront. Okay, these are the steps on how to configure CloudFront, how to attach it to your S3 service to reduce the access time to it. All right, so with this, we wrap up this chapter. At the end, we have just one case study on how to use Amazon CloudFront. In this chapter, we covered some of the very popular services in Amazon Cloud. There are many more services, for example, on how to work with databases, how to do NoSQL databases, how to do queuing, and how to do machine learning. A lot of different services are offered nowadays in cloud. This is just a very short summary of those services. Thank you and goodbye.